All right, I think we live everywhere. What's up, everybody? I'm back on here again to do another coding challenge. It's been a few weeks, but I'm trying to get back on the grind. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do this Valid Palindrome number 2 tonight from LeetCode.com. I'm gonna do it using JavaScript. I'm going to. I haven't submitted this one before, so this will be a little bit different than I've done before. So hopefully I can work through it with people watching, get through it successfully, and talk about the time and space complexity of it. But yeah, basically what I'm going to do tonight is another coding challenge, and then I might answer some questions after if it's not too late. So yeah, hope some people jump in and join and watch me do this and help me work through this coding challenge. These things still get asked in interviews a lot, I feel like. A lot of companies are starting to switch from it, but it's still pretty prominent. So I like to keep practicing them in case I have to get back on the interview grind again. But yeah, so yeah, Whittington's on TikTok. What's up, man? He said I'm up too high to be doing easies. Yeah, I see your messages, man. I see them. Like, I'm just doing easies are easier to explain and do on here in a short time. Like, I could do some hards. I've done some hards on here before, but it just take too damn long, man. Like, it just is crazy. So I usually just do some easies because they're easier to explain, more of like the interview process around them and the thought process and going through these problems and kind of the things that you want to do and think about. But yeah, you're right. I need to graduate to doing some mediums and hards on here at least some mediums. So we'll see how this one goes. Once I get used to doing these like every week, then I'll probably start up into some mediums and stuff like that. But hopefully people will still learn from the easies. I know a lot of people watch these that I've had before in the past, especially on TikTok. They'll watch that are, first just starting out or whatever. So everybody's at different levels, so we'll see how it goes in the future. Somebody asked what's the best language to do LeetCodes? Probably Python is probably the best. JavaScript's pretty good. Usually like dynamically typed languages because they're least verbose. Like, you don't have to specify the types. You don't have to do a lot of boilerplate with like typing, and it's usually those static or dynamically typed language are a little bit more free, a little bit less verbose, less code to write. You want to just be able to write code as quickly and seamless as possible. You don't want to get stuck trying to write a bunch of like complicated or more complex language stuff. Like, so like using like Java for an interview may be good if you're going for a Java job, but if you're just going for just another type of job with different type of language in the forefront, using Java in the interview, you're gonna have to type so much boilerplate code that it's really not a good idea. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start the problem. I think a few people have jumped on some of the platforms, so we'll see how it goes. I'm on all the platforms. If you want to switch to another one, I'm on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, of course, is probably the one with the most people on it, or will be the most people on it. What else? Facebook too. So, and yeah, I'm on all these platforms streaming simultaneously or whatever. So yeah, and then somebody said whichever language you know best. Yeah, probably whichever language you know best is the best to do these in. But anyway, I talked long enough. Let's jump into this problem. This one is called, hold on a second, screwed up. Lost my screen. All right, yeah, this one's called Valid Palindrome II from LeetCode.com. It's an easy problem, and it goes as such. Given a string s, return true if s can be palindrome. Wait, why is it like, this seems kind of weird sentence. Given a string s, return true if the s can be palindrome after deleting at most one character from it. can be a palindrome? Why is it just can be palindrome after deleting at most one character from it? So anyway, that's the problem. I know I kind of butchered it, but it just kind of reads kind of weird. Given a string S, return true if the S can be palindrome after deleting at most one character from it. Sound like, I don't know, like caveman talk or something like that. It's kind of weird. But anyway, so basically they want you to return true or false if the string is a palindrome after you remove at least one character, or at most one character. I'm sorry. So you can choose not to remove any character, but at most you can remove one from it. And if you remove any one of those characters and you still get a palindrome, then you return true. So like in this example, you don't have to remove anything. It's already a palindrome. And what a palindrome is that it looks the same forward and backwards. So if you start at the front and at the end, you have the same letters. And as you move inward in the word, you should keep getting the same letters. It should be like a mirror on both ends. So like ABA is a palindrome. ABCA is actually not a palindrome. But if you remove the C, take the C out, you get ABA, which is a palindrome. So this would be true because if you delete the character C, then you get ABA, which is a palindrome. And in this one, ABC, no matter which character you remove, or it's not a palindrome to begin with, but no matter which character you remove, you still don't get another palindrome. So if you remove C, you get AB. If you remove B, you get AC. Remove A, you get BC, which are not palindromes. So you return false in this case. So, I mean, the question seemed pretty simple. Let me know if you don't understand that question. I'm going to try to show the comments to myself again. I kind of screwed that part up. Okay, move this over here. All right, yeah, now I can see the comments and stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's the question. Let me know if that doesn't make sense to you. If you've seen me do these before, then you know how I like to do these is I like to think through the solution first in my head and talk about it with the interviewer. Like first you want to clarify the question, make sure that you understand it, and then you want to talk through your solution with the interviewer or with yourself if you're just doing these for yourself, whatever the case is. And once you kind of confirm the solution with the interviewer or with yourself, then you can go ahead and start on. So you don't want to just jump right to the code. The other thing I forgot to mention also is constraints. So here it says the constraints are S, the length of S, which means that's the length of the string. How many characters does the word have in it? It's always going to be greater than 1. So that's important to know that we're never going to have a string or a word without any characters in it, and it's going to be less than 10 to the 5th power, which basically just means that it's not going to exceed the bounds of what the programming language we're using can contain in a string. So it really just means that you don't have to worry about overflow or something like that. But yeah, so it's always going to have something in it, and then it's always going to consist of lower English letters, which kind of is important because you don't want to, I guess, I don't know, it might not matter in this problem actually, because you're just palindrome. It just depends on what characters are in here, but you might want to know if there's blank spaces in there or different characters or whatever the case, or emojis or something in there. But I don't know, it probably doesn't matter as long as it looks the same on both sides. Then it probably doesn't matter what character is there. But it's still important to notice that this is what you're looking for. It can mean something in many different problems. So these constraints may be something the interviewer gives you, maybe not. Just depends. Sometimes you need to know to ask for these things if the interviewer doesn't give you these constraints. You may need to ask these as clarifying questions to say, hey, what are the bounds of this problem? If I do, ask them, what you need to solve the problem, what the data input looks like. And in this case, this is the information they're just giving you here, but the interviewer may not just give you that. You may have to ask them. So these are some of the things as you do these these coding challenge style problems, you'll start to see trends in what they give you as constraints, and then you'll start to kind of inherently know to ask that in an interview and look for that stuff in an interview. So anyway, the problem, valid palindrome 2, given a string S, return true if the string can be palindrome. I don't know why it reads like that, but after deleting at most one character from it. So that's the problem. If I think about it in my head, if I just kind of got this from a blank state, I would think about first, how do you know what a palindrome is? Or how do you decide what a palindrome is via some code or logic, mental logic, I'd say, before you go to code. So I just know that a palindrome from the front to the back, it needs to look the same on both sides. It needs to be a mirror. So I know when I start from the front, the first character needs to match the last character, and then when I move inside, the next character on each side needs to match the other character. These examples are so short, but if you think of a string like A, B, B, A, then it kind of starts to make more sense. Like the A on both sides is the same, and then when you move in, the B on both sides is the same. Or even A, B, A, B, A. The A on both sides is the same. The two B's are the same when you move in, and then the A in the middle is the same. So it's like a mirror on both sides. From the middle going out is like a mirror opposite on the left and right sides. And so I know, just logically, that's how I know what a palindrome is. And I know that the problem is saying, okay, can you still get a palindrome if you don't have one to begin with? If you delete one character, can you get a palindrome? And so here I see that, okay, I could start on both sides. Well, first, just go back. How would you programmatically or logically figure out if something's a palindrome from the start? Don't forget about deleting a character or whatever. What I would do was start, like I said, start on the left, and I would start on the right. I would have just 2 points that I would start from, and I would check if those things were equal, and then I would move in on each side. So from A, I would go to B, and then from this A, I would go to B, and I would check if those things were equal. And then if I never run into a case where they're not equal on both sides, then I would know that this is a palindrome. If I just keep getting equals as I move in till I get to the middle, then I know that this is a palindrome. If I find a place where something's not equal on both sides, there's not a mirror on both sides, then I know it's not a palindrome. Now, it gets more complicated when you need to choose whether you want to remove something. So like in this case, if I start on the left and the right, I start with A on this side, A on this side, everything's good in the first case. I check that the first thing equals the last thing, yes. And then I move into B on this side, I move into C on this side, I see that B does not equal C. So then I would need to check if, let's say if I would actually need to check on both sides. If I remove the one on this side, will I get a palindrome? If I remove the one on the other side, will I get a palindrome? So I could check first on this side. Like, let's say I decide to skip this one, as meaning I would delete at most one character. I would delete the one character. So if I delete this character and just skip it and just move this pointer or whatever, move this position that I'm looking at to C, on the other side, it'll also be C, and that means it'll equal, and that means I'll still get a palindrome, and I'll get true. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, I think that's something you probably have to start coding out, but that's how I would try to explain it to the interviewer, is that, like, I would explain how I would get a palindrome in general, and then I would also explain, like, how I would handle the case where I want to check both sides by removing one character. And the thing I would check is that if neither of these sides, if I don't get a palindrome on either of these sides, then I know that I don't have a palindrome. I can just exit out. Like, I know I just don't have a palindrome in general. But if I do get a palindrome on either one of these sides, then I know that I have a palindrome. Because what we would need to do is, well, let me think about how to explain this. It's actually kind of hard to explain, because what I would need to do is, one thing I could do is remove the character here, or I could just check the range on either side, whether it's a palindrome or not. So that's the hard part of, like, trying to think, like, how I would explain that to an interviewer. It's kind of tough, actually. So, because it'd be really expensive to take this character out of the equation. So, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I would start with A on both sides. I would say this is A. This is this one is, yeah. So I would start with a start and an end, and check if they're equal. Then I will move to B and see that they're not equal, and then I would check that if I skipped B, then would I still get a palindrome if I skip B? And oh yeah, so if I skip B, then I would start with C and A, and that wouldn't be a palindrome. So I don't know. I need to think about this a little bit more, actually. Delete this. Let me see. Yeah, this is kind of hard to explain now that I'm thinking about it, how I would want to do it. I tried to do it earlier. Yeah, let me see what y'all got to say, because I don't know, I'm getting kind of stuck now. Somebody said, how do I get over the frustration I feel when I can't solve a problem? Yeah, I mean, hey, that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm trying to think about how to do this in a way that I can explain. Because now I'm thinking, yeah, the only way I can really think about to explain this is you start with A on the start, you start with A on the end, you see those are equal, then you move your pointers in and see that these are not equal, and then you try deleting B out, and then you move that pointer to C, and the other pointer stays on C, and then you see that they're equal. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So once you move those pointers, then you just check if that's a palindrome, and this is a palindrome. And then you've already checked that the outside of that is a palindrome. So if the inside is a palindrome when you delete something, and the outside is a palindrome, then you still have a palindrome, because inside of a palindrome is also a palindrome on the outside. So the shorter range of the palindrome is still a palindrome. Is a palindrome still. So like if you have A B A B A, then if you look only on the inside, then ABA is still a palindrome inside of the other palindrome. That's actually kind of hard to explain, but yeah, that's kind of the solution, I think. That's the only way I think you could do it. So yeah, that's what I would probably explain. Let me see if I just got any comments that will help explain. Hey, what's up, Mark and David? What's going on? I hope y'all learning something on here, for real. I'm trying. It's tough. Somebody said AABBAACCB is the cheat code for Mortal Kombat on Sega Genesis. And then somebody said, what's the definition of a palindrome? Yeah, I hope I just explained that. It's basically, palindrome is like a mirror word. Like it looks the same on the front. If you split it in the middle, it basically looks the same going each direction. Yeah, so that's what a palindrome is. Appreciate y'all joining. I'm gonna read the comments and see if I get any ideas from people. Natively, you can delete each character and then run the palindrome check. Okay. Thought the palindrome is the same if you reverse it. What's the thing that you reverse? Do you get it? No, I think you're thinking about an anagram. I think you're thinking about an anagram or something like that. Oh no, that is true. Yeah, if you reverse it, is the same. My bad. Because an anagram is just a word, a different word, like a different word from the same letters. So like, hat and what's a good word? What's a good anagram word? Cat and tack. I don't know. Something like CTA and cat. You know, it's like an anagram. But yeah, I guess a palindrome is the same if you reverse it. Yeah, race car is a good anagram. Or race car, my bad, is a good palindrome, actually. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I actually want to use race car. Appreciate you adding that. Chance trades. I actually want to use that as an example. Or tenant. Yeah, so that's actually a good example. So anyway, I'm going to move on to the code. This one definitely is kind of like, I guess this is why it's palindrome. It's an easy one, but it's kind of hard to explain like what you want to do. But anyway, I'm going to put also the problem on the screen so y'all can see that. And I'm going to put some examples. Example, palindromes, race car, like tenant. Appreciate that for chance trades for adding that. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do this problem. Y'all can see that the at the top of the screen I have the problem statement. This one's called Valid Palindromes. I'm gonna go ahead and fix this to let, I'm using JavaScript, so if you know JavaScript, you would see why I'm changing this to let this declaration of using let versus var like is considered a better way to do it, so that you so this function isn't getting hoisted to the global scope. It's just, you know, within the scope that this function is in within LeetCode. Doesn't really matter in LeetCode. That's why LeetCode kind of had it that way, but it's just best practice to use let. So I'm just going to change it because somebody is definitely going to comment. And then somebody said, what do you create with this code? This is LeetCode.com. This is a place where they just give you practice coding challenges to do. So I'm basically the top of the screen. I'm doing the coding challenge that's reads at the top of the screen. And I actually just started. So like I said, how I want to do this is look at example tenant. I want to start at the front. I want to start at the back. I want to look at both the front and the back and make sure they're equal. So here I would check T and T are equal. I would check if E and E are equal. I would check if the middle is equal. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And it's not T and T, E and E, but I would basically check that the first and the last character are equal. Then I would move in and check that the next to last and the next to first character are equal. And then as I get to the middle, I would, if it's an odd number of characters, then of course it'll just be equal because the middle is just the middle. If it's an even number, then I would, just stop at wherever those two middle numbers meet. So yeah, so basically in my code, I just want to kind of look at the start and look at the back and just check that everything is equal. And then there's also the example of almost palindromes that if I delete one character, I would get a palindrome, and that's like abca. If I remove one character, I get A, B, and A. If I remove C. So that's what the problem wants me to do. Like, it wants me to validate that it's a palindrome if it's already a palindrome, or if it's a palindrome that if I remove at least one character, at most one character, that's important, can I still get a palindrome? So here, I would also start at the start at the end, see if these are equal, and I would keep going until I ran into a case that wasn't equal. And then in that case, I would check if I skip either the front or the back. If I just decide to skip one of these, will I get a palindrome in that current range that I'm searching in? Because if I get a palindrome inside the range without one or the other character, then that means I have a valid palindrome, because everything on the outside I already know is equal, because I've already been checking that they're equal up to that point. That is the best way to explain this problem. I know I was just messing that up the whole time before this. I'm sorry, but that's why this stuff is so hard. That's why you have to practice this stuff, because explaining it to the interviewer is like half the battle of like what your approach is going to be. So that would be the way I explain it to him. Before I jump to the code, I would ask him if, hey, do you think this solution that I'm going to do makes sense? This approach I'm going to take? And they would say yes or no. They would maybe give you a clue. They maybe let you know if you're on the wrong track. That's why you do that, because they may help you in that moment. They may not, but a lot of times they will help you and say, hey, why don't you think about this? Or why don't you think about that? Or they'll kind of push you like, hey, I think you're on the right track. You need to go ahead and do that. So that's why you want to talk before you just jump into the code. And I'm actually glad that I kind of went through that whole mental gymnastics a little bit, because that's the kind of confusion you get into. Like, I felt like I kind of knew this problem confidently before I jumped on the live. Like, I didn't finish it, but I kind of looked through it and kind of like tried to mentally go through it real quick before I jumped on the live, which, you know, once you get in the real, like, this is a simulation of an interview experience. And once you get in the real thing, you just thinking from your mind, it's easy to get tripped up on these things. And that's why you have to practice, like, in front of people, or practice under some time crunch or something to give you a level of like, you know, urgency that you would need so you can kind of keep your focus to get back on track. So anyway, how I would start this off is what I said I was going to do. So I said I'm going to start looking from the front and looking from the back, and I'm going to looking from the front, looking from the back, and I'm going to check that these characters on the front and back are equal. If they're not, then I'm going to try skipping the front and seeing if I get a palindrome, and then I'm going to try skipping the back and see if I get a palindrome. And if I do, I know that my whole thing is true. If I don't, then I know that, okay, I'm going to have to remove more than one character to get a palindrome, so I might as well just return false in that case. So anyway, how I do that is you want to set a pointer. This is called a 2-pointer approach. But you want to set a pointer for, and you want to set a pointer for the front index of the string. So in JavaScript, a string actually can be indexed like an array, or it is indexed like an array, and you can access it like you access an array with indexes 0 through n, where n is the size of the length of the array. And so 0 is the start. That's the index of A in this case. It's the index of T in this case. It's the index of R in this case. This is kind of basic programming stuff that you kind of have to know before you start doing these problems, of course. But yeah, and then the end of a string, the end index of a string would be the string's length minus 1. Since the index starts at 0, you just take the length, which in this case would be 5. And since the index starts at 0, you would get 0 for this index, 1 for this index, 2 for this index, 3, and then 4 for this index. So if the whole thing is 5, then you just subtract the 1 to get the 4th index here, the 4 index here. So that's just something you just kind of learn how to do over time with programming. So I got the start and end index. And what I actually want to do is a while loop here, because I want this to keep going. Like I said, I want to keep moving my start and end indexes inward and to keep checking if each character is equal as I move in. And if not, then I want to do something special, like I said before. So how you can do that, one of the ways you can do that is with the while loop, and you can say while start is less than or equal to end, because I'm going to keep moving these in. And I'm actually going to go ahead and write the code that's going to move this loop, while loop forward. So start is always going to get pushed forward, and end is always going to get pushed back. And what these plus and minus does is just at this line it'll just subtract one. It'll add 1 to start, and this line it'll add subtract 1 from end. And what that'll do is, as I loop through this every time in this code that I'm going to put here, I'm going to keep moving the pointer at the end forward, because by subtracting 1 from it, and I'm going to move the start pointer forward, or sorry, backwards by subtracting 1, and I'm going to move the start pointer forward by adding 1 to it. So basically this is what this while loop is doing, is just kind of going from both ends with 2 pointers until I get to the middle. And when I get to the middle, is if the number of characters is odd, then these will equal each other. I'll be at like one thing in the middle. If it's even, then these will actually like cross. And once they cross, then I'll be outside of this condition here. Because like if start is greater than end, like it actually crossed over, then I shouldn't even do anything at that point. It's like not a valid scenario. So now I would end the while loop. So what do I want to do inside of here? So like I said, the first thing I want to check is I want to check that the first character, whether it's equal to the last character, whatever the pointer's at. And so how you access that in the string is you just use these brackets in JavaScript. At least you say S, and then you use the bracket, and then you put the pointer in here. And I actually, to make this more clear for people, I could put start index and end index. It's kind of making my code a little longer, but it may read a little better for people. So then this basically what this does is give me the character, whatever's in this string. So that's T in this case, at the index of 0. So it's going to pull that out of this string array, which in JavaScript, you don't have to actually convert it to a string. You can just access the letters. It's already accessible in JavaScript, at least. And so I'm going to say, is that if they're not equal, and I'm actually going to check the end index value. So if the value at start index is not equal to the value at end index, meaning if this T is not equal to this T, then I actually want to go in here in this condition. If it is equal to the T, then I just want to continue to loop. Like I said, like if these are equal, then I'm good to keep going to check the next set. And then I'm good to keep going to check the next set. So in the case of tenant, I actually would never get into this case, because these will all, like the start index will always equal the end index, because this is a palindrome from the start. So I would actually come out of this loop without ever doing anything. And in that case, I actually want to go ahead and put a return true, because this code will be able to detect if I have a valid palindrome from the start. And so the other case I need to handle is when I don't have a valid palindrome, as far as I find, or at least I find that the start, like in this case, when I get to B and C, I keep messing that up. But when I get to B and C, I find that these don't equal. I'll actually flow into this if statement here. So we need to handle what's happening right there. So when we get right here, if these don't equal, what I want to do. So if these don't equal, now I want to check, like I said earlier, like I explained earlier, I want to check what will happen if I remove. First, I just want to check what will happen if I remove B. Like if I remove B out of the equation, and then check if the range that I'm at is an anagram without B, because that means I remove one thing, then I know I still have an anagram. Or I can check if I remove C, the thing on the other side. I have to check on the left and the right. If I remove the left one and still have an anagram, then I have an anagram totally, because on both ends I've already checked that everything's equal. Now if I don't get on either one, if I remove either one of these and I don't still have an anagram, then that means I'm done. Like, because the problem says I can only remove one thing. So if I check left and the right side and try to remove that and I didn't get an anagram, then I'm done. Because at most I can only delete one thing. So I can end the problem right there. And so how do I want to do that though? So what I actually want to do is I need to check. Well, first, how can I check that I have a palindrome on the left and right side? So I know that what I want to do in that case is say to check left side. I'm just going to put check. Let me see. Check deleting one from left side. So how I can do that is actually say start index plus 1. And what start, I can use this as skipping this one. So start index plus 1 will actually put me at the next index. So it actually is like it's logically deleting one or logically skipping one on one side. Now, if I want to check what it looks like to delete from the right, and this part is probably hard to explain, but I would actually check what the, with index minus 1. And so how I want to check that is actually I would add a new function, and we can call it is palindrome in range, or is palindrome in this range, or something like that. And so I'm still going to have my string passed in, but I'm going to have a new start and a new end index. Start index and end index. And I basically want to check. Here I was kind of checking is a palindrome the whole thing, but here I want to check within a certain range, do I have a palindrome? So like I said, like if I delete something, I want to check if the remaining range is a palindrome, because I know everything outside of that is a palindrome. And if I delete one thing and I still get a palindrome in that inside range, then I know I still have a palindrome. So for this, I also want to return either true or false. So I'm going to go ahead and just return true at the end. But the same way as I check for a palindrome here, I'm sort of going to continue to kind of do the same stuff in here. So I'm actually going to copy this down and fix this. And I'm going to say, okay, oh shoot, I actually need this too. So I'm going to copy all this down. I'm going to show you why I'm copying this down in a minute. And I'm going to delete that outside. But I'm going to basically say, is there a palindrome in this range? So it's the same thing. I'm still checking for a palindrome again. But I'm saying within these ranges that I pass in here, I'm going to say, if start is less than index, just like I did up here, and it doesn't equal. So this time I'm not going to delete anything, but I'm just going to say, and I probably should have started with this, like just the end palindrome. Is it a palindrome function first that I could have used in my other function up here? It probably would have been easier to explain. But anyway, I did it backwards, so I'm just going to keep doing it like I'm doing it. But yeah, so here, if these don't equal, then I don't have a palindrome. Otherwise, I'm going to keep looping through and just checking if these are equal. And so if they are equal, then I just keep looping through till I get to the end. If I get all the way to the end without going into this bad case, then I'm going to hit this true down here, which means that it is a palindrome in this range. And so that's basically, this function here is basically for valid. This is basically valid palindrome 1. There's a problem in LeetCode.com called Valid Palindrome 1. It probably would have made sense for me to do that problem first and then just get this function and then do this Valid Palindrome 2, which is a little bit harder. But yeah, this is basically Valid Palindrome. This is the function, the solution for Valid Palindrome 1. And I actually messed this up because I should put in JavaScript, you got to do it like that. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see. Hope that's not too small. text for you. Yeah. So yeah. And so for anybody that's joining that's asking, I'm doing a problem from LeetCode.com. Up at the top is the prompt, like the problem prompt. It's like a coding challenge, and I'm just trying to code the solution. So appreciate people joining. I'm gonna try to answer some questions after if you just hold on. But I'm getting close to the solution, I think. So anyway, I made this extra function called is valid palindrome in range. And now this is going to start to make sense, hopefully, of what I'm going to do with this. So I'm actually going to check if either, I'm going to first check if I delete one from the right, do I have a palindrome in that range? And that's not how you spell that, but. And so how I would do that, like I said, add 1 to this. What I can do is actually use this function I made, and I can say I want my, I'm going to pass in S, like I said, still passing the string, but I'm going to change the range to be +1, and I'm going to use the same end range or end index. And so instead of checking the range of start index to end index, I'm gonna actually check the range of start index +1 to end index. So what does this do? Like this +1 thing, this is how I'm skipping one or deleting at most one character. This is an attempt to delete one character and see if I have a palindrome in the range. When I delete one character, check if you delete from the left, do you have a palindrome? And so by adding 1 to that and passing it in, it's a pass by value. And what's going to happen is when I get down here, it's going to pass start index +1. So it's actually going to be 1 more than it was in the function up here. And so I'm checking a different range with 1 excluded, if that makes sense. And so I also need to do the same thing on the end, because like I have to check if either I can delete one on the front side, on the left side, or on the right side. So for the right side, like I said, like I typed out before, it's -1, because you know my start index and end index, they're always plus or -1. Or that's how I'm iterating these. And I actually found a mistake here because I renamed these. So this actually has to be start index and end index. Somebody might have caught that in the comments. But yeah, so I'll fix that. So yeah, and so since I need to check either or, I don't need to check both but I need to if I find that I add 1 on this side and I get a palindrome, then I'm done. So I actually can put an or here in JavaScript, and let me see. Yeah. So I know this is kind of jumping lines, but I'm actually checking, do I have a palindrome in range when I delete the character from the start, from the left, or do I have a palindrome when I delete the character or skip the character on the right? If either of these is true, then I have a palindrome, and I actually can return true out of this whole function. But down here, I am returning true. So I actually can just do return right here and say, if I get true from the result of this function, or I get true from the result of this function, return true out of this whole answer and say that I got a whole valid palindrome. Because within this sub range, when I skip at least one thing, I delete at least one thing, I still have a palindrome inside of this sub range. And so that means I have a palindrome in the whole thing, because I've been looping through out here, and I know that everything outside of the sub range is also a palindrome. So the whole thing is a palindrome. So yeah. So it's basically, and somebody said, I think 2 while loops is n squared. I'm actually going to explain at the end of this why it usually is, but in this case, it's not going to be n squared, because I'm just going to stop right here. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to check one of these, and I'm going to I'm gonna stop. Like I'm not gonna it's not n times n. It's just I'm just gonna check 2 times the rest of the substring. And if I don't find something, then I just end right there. I don't check for every n. I'm not checking another n times. So I'll explain it at the end though when I explain the time complexity. But yeah, usually it's a red flag to see nested while loops for sure. Usually. But in this case, it's actually gonna work out fine. So I'm gonna delete this comment here. And so yeah, palindrome on this side, or do I have a palindrome when I remove the character on the other side? And so yeah, I think this looks good. So what usually happens in the interview, what you want to do, sometimes the interviewer will let you run the code right out. Some interviewers, they don't actually even have a thing to execute the code. You might be doing the code in Notepad, and you might have to explain the code to them line by line and how it works, and even run some test scenarios through it. So I'm gonna do that. And then I'm actually gonna run it on LeetCode too, to give both experiences that you might see in an interview. And so what that'll do is allow me to check my own code for issues, and it also kind of allow me to emulate an interview experience. Yeah. So, and somebody just said this is no longer a valuable experience to gain. AI will replace coders. That always comes up, but right now, at least for right now, there's still companies asking these problems. So if they want to stop asking these problems, then I'll stop practicing. I really don't have any desire to do coding challenges. It's just to get some of these jobs, especially at these fame level companies. So like Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, these big tech companies, especially, you have to do these kind of problems still. Some of them are starting to kind of move back off of them, but you still got to do them. So until that day when AI replaces everything or whatever, then we're still doing these things. Hopefully that day changes soon when they start asking us more questions about how we use AI tools to code, and they start checking other things outside of our coding skills. But at the end of the day, even when AI sort of pushes along, I think there's still going to be value in having skills and understanding time and space complexity when AI does get it wrong. Because sometimes AI doesn't have all the context it needs to get things right. Sometimes it makes mistakes still. It'll get better. But I still think it's valuable to have skills. So that's my opinion. But anyway, let's keep going. So let's let's keep. I'm trying to read the comments. Somebody saying it's binary search. It's not binary search for sure. It's just simply while loops. So anyway, what I'm gonna do is just run a couple test cases. I'm gonna run the first case when there's a valid palindrome, and then I'm gonna run another case when there's a valid palindrome to start with, and I'm gonna run another case when I can remove one character, and then maybe I'll run another case when I just don't have any palindrome at all. So how we do that is, let's actually just use Tenet for the valid palindrome case. And how I like to do this for interviews is I like to set up variables. So I like to take account of every variable I have and just keep the state at the top up here. Because like I said, I've been in interviews, sometimes they don't let you run the code. So, that's just, sometimes you need to know how to do it by hand. And this will also help you know if there's something wrong with your code. And the only part I probably won't write down is this part. I might do I might just do one little practice problem down here just to ensure this code works as I expect. But then after I know it works as I expect, I'll just kind of do this up here. So actually I'll do this part first, just to make sure that this sub function works as I expect it to. And then I'll just forget about it forever. So let's start with that first. So Yeah, do I got every? Yeah, I got every variable here. So let's say if I got tenant, I should get a valid palindrome in this range. And I know that my start index, the end index is just going to be 4 because that's the last index in this string. And so I'm going to just start this problem off line by line. I'm going to say, so if start index is less than end index, so in this case start index is 0 is less than 4, so I'm going to continue here. So what is s at start index? That's t, because s at 0 is t. What's s at end index? That's t, because s at index 4 is t. If s does not equal s at start index does not equal s at end index, then return false. Well, that's not true because these do equal each other. So I'm going to skip this if statement. I'm just going to keep iterating and decrementing start index and index. So actually, I'm going to wipe these out and I'm going to increment start index and I'm going to decrement end index. So then I'm going to actually come back to the start of this loop. Is it still less? Yes, 1 is less than 3. Now I'm going to get E and N because I pushed the indexes in. So start index is E, S start index is E, S index is also E on the back end. These do not equal, these do equal, so I skip this case again and I increment these again. I get 2 and 2, so I'm actually in the middle now. So both of these actually equal this N. So I'm going to put N here. So is it less than or equal to? It is less than or equal to. I actually probably don't even need this case, but I'll keep it. Do they not equal? Yet they do equal because N equals N. Start index, I just push these again. Now this case doesn't make sense anymore. It's false. Like start index is actually higher than end index. They've kind of like cross paths. So I actually break out of this loop and I just return true, which for tenant I should return true. So let's say I had something like AFF, you know what I'm saying? That's not a palindrome. Let's see if this function works. Start index will be 0, end index will be 2. Start index at 0 will be A, end index at I'm sorry, not start index at 0. S at start index will be A, S at end index will be F. And then I will come in here again. Does A and F not equal? Then I would just return false. And even if I had something like this, then I would go through the first time. I would get A and A. I would go through the first time and I would actually skip this case because, and then I would just, because they don't equal. I mean, they do equal. So I would skip this case. I would move these up, move this one down. Then I would get F and E. This is still true. F does not equal E, like I got here. I would actually return false in this case, which I should do for this. So basically, I know this was like a lot. If I know this was a lot to go through as just an extra step, but like this verifies, or at least from my point of view, that this sub function works. So I'm just gonna leave this alone for now. It works, and I'm gonna go back to testing this one for the main problem. I know this is a lot, but like you kind of have to do this, like, and so I'm actually gonna test. You know what? I'm actually, because I'm not, since I already tested this code down here, I'm actually not gonna test that the same code works up here. I'm actually just gonna go ahead and, for the sake of time, test my bad case. Where I have to, well, not bad case, but a case where I have to remove one character in order to get to test that I have a palindrome. So in this case, start index is 0, end index is gonna start, well, I go line by line, right? So start index gets set equal to 0, end index gets set to s.length minus 1, which would, in this case, the length is 4 minus 1 would give me 3. And so then I would come here, is start index minus end. Is start index less than or equal to end index? Yes, that's true. 0 is less than or equal to 3. Does s at start index, does it not equal s at n index. So I need to find out what those are. That would be a and a. It does equal, so I actually will skip this case and I will just increment and decrement start and end index. So I'm going to wipe these out. I'm going to increment and decrement these. Then I'm going to go ahead and set these again because I know I'm going to get B and C for index 1 and index 2. So then I'm going to come back to the start of my loop. This is still true, or sorry, this is still true. I'm going to come back in my loop again with new indexes 1 and 2. Then I want to check again, do these not equal? Now we got a case where these do not equal, B and C do not equal. So what it's saying is, my code here is saying, is the palindrome in this range? It's going to run this function first. It's going to say return this or this. So since it's an or, it's actually going to run this one first, or it's always going to run that one first. But since it's an or, if this equals true, then I'll just return true out of this without actually running this one. And then if this one is false, then I actually would try this one too. So I'm like actually checking both sides to see if I remove the one, if I remove, basically what this is saying, if I try removing B, do I have an anagram with ACA? If I try removing C, do I have an anagram with ABA? And so that's what that's actually trying to do. And so actually what I want to check first is try to removing the B by passing this with +1. So I actually move this index up. So actually I'm going to go into this function with start index +1. So it'll change start index to +1. So I actually would have start index of 2, which will make this C. And when I come in here, if C equals C, then I'm actually going to come into here. It still equals. I'm going to come into here. It's going to skip this. It's going to add these together. It's going to break out of this while loop. It's going to return true, which is going to return true out of this function, which is going to return true out of this whole thing and give me result of true as a final result. So that's one way this function can run. The other way it could run, if I had a different test case, like, I don't know, I have to think of a different test case that actually make me make it a palindrome if I remove it on the other side, which I'm not actually sure. Maybe if I had maybe abca. If I had that, let's see if that actually does it. So that means this start is over with the different test result, because this still should be an anagram if I remove C. So then that would give me the n index of 4. These will start off with A and A. So it actually, I'm not going to mentally go through this, but I actually know that A and A equals. So I'm going to go ahead and just increment these. I know my logic, I already tested that my logic works in that case. And so then I'm going to move on to B at the start and C at the end. I've actually moved the index to here. That's what this code will do. And when I get to here where B and C don't equal, that's what I want to see what happens. Because B and C don't equal. So I actually jump in here. And now I want to check if I remove this one. So I actually change start index to 2, which would give me B again, because then it would just be here. And so now if I pass in 2 and 3 to this function down here, and that's B and C, these actually don't equal, so I will actually return false. And so then I would actually try the other side if I actually passed in the same start index but subtracted 1 from the end index and skipped the 1 on the end. So I actually would put this back to 1 and put this down to 2, which would give me B, and this would go down to B. And so then I got this BB here, and I'll pass that into here, and BB are not equal, and I would actually keep looping through here until these equaled, and I actually would end up getting true out of this one. I'm not gonna go through all of it because now it's just now it's just too it's just over explaining too much. So anyway, basically I'm thinking my code is working because I would get a true out of this side, it would return true out of the whole function, and I'd be fine. Now if I didn't get true from either of these, so a case where like another bad case, like a completely bad case, then I would return false and I would just break out of the problem. Like I wouldn't keep going. So that's what I'm saying, is that time complexity is met. Let's talk about the time complexity here now then. So now I'm done with explaining that part. Let's talk about the time complexity. So time complexity is based off the size of your input and how your algorithm scales to it. Is a way for us to denote how our algorithm scales as it relates to the size of our input. The size of the input in this case is the length of this string, which we're gonna just call s.length. Just call it n, or the other way around. Let's say n equals s.length. So let's call that n, because n is most common when we use in big O notation. So here I know that at most I'm using 2 pointers on my string. So at most I'm gonna have to look at every single character in this string. I'm gonna have to do an operation to look at each character in this string. And so then if I go here and I have to check, so inside a while loop, if I have to go in here and check that I still have a palindrome inside the range when I move one character, when I skip one character on the front or skip one character on the end, then I'm not checking the length of this over again. I'm only checking, is it a palindrome in this sub range here? So that's not equal to n. That's just the remaining characters left that I haven't checked in this while loop. So that's why I said earlier it's not a nested while. It's a nested while loop, but it's not big O. It's not n squared time complexity. So because I'm just continuing my search inside of these two ranges, and the fact that even if I do this twice, that's n plus n. It's not n times n, because these aren't nested. These are just happening one after the other. They're not nested. So it's not n times n, it's n plus n, which in big O notation just reduces down to n. And so, and these not even n, like this is like n minus whatever I checked already in the big loop. So really what I'm doing is like I'm doing partial loop here until I find something that doesn't match, and then I'm doing the rest of the loop inside of here. And if everything lines up, then I return true, and I've still only checked every character in the string, like basically n. It's probably n divided by 2 actually, because I'm using 2 pointers. So it's actually probably it might be either this time complexity, y'all let me know in the comments, either it's big O of n or it's big O of n divided by 2. I think it's big O of n. That's what I think the time complexity is on this one. It's big O of n. But I can verify that later. I'm not really sure, honestly. The space complexity, I'm not using any data structures in addition to the data structure I passed in. I'm not creating any new data structures that are scaling with the size of the input. So I'm actually just using constant space. Like all these operations are not in space. What I mean by space is like creating new data structures, like new arrays, a new hash map, a new stack, or some sort of data structure that would grow substantially in this algorithm based on the size of my input. The only thing I'm doing is using the input that I passed in, which doesn't count for space complexity. It's just, unless I'm like manipulating it and growing it in some way. So I'm actually not using any additional space that grows in relation. So if this is 1, if this string length is 1, or if it's 1,000,000, I'm going to run more time complexity operations if it's 1,000,000, but I'm actually not going to use any more space than was just used in this original string input that got passed in, if that makes sense. So the bro complexity would just be the space complexity, I'm sorry, would just be constant. So big O of 1. So anyway, I just went through all of that manually. This is what you might have to do in the interview if like they don't let you run the code. But in LeetCode, I actually can run the code. So I'm gonna try to run the code, see what I get. I know I see the comments. Yeah, I see the comments, and everybody got different opinions about everything. But yeah, let's see. Somebody said I didn't know Jason Weaver was a coder. You think I look like Jason Weaver? That's crazy. I don't look nothing like Jason Weaver. But that's funny though. I'm not even gonna lie. That was kind of funny. Yeah, so anyway, I got accepted for the case ABA, which makes sense. That was a palindrome from the start. ABCA, if you remove C, you get ABA. So I got that case handled. And then ABC is just not a palindrome at all. Even if you remove one thing from it, still not a palindrome. So I got false. So these cases got accepted. And so what you also can do on LeetCode is you can run it against all, like a whole big set of, yeah, somebody, Chesra said the time complexity with this code, a big O of N. I really do think it's big O of N. Yeah, and yeah, it's just like, I don't know where, you know what the confusion is because time complexity is like the hardest thing, one of the hardest things to do after you get the problem done. And just because I'm nesting these loops, usually when you nest loops, it's usually you're multiplying the time complexity. But in this case, you have to realize that I'm breaking out. As soon as I check this one time, I'm breaking out. So either I loop through the whole thing one time, or I loop through part of it until I find a mismatch, and then I simply just loop through the rest of it. Like I'm only doing the range, right? Like I'm still using these indexes that I was using here, and I'm just checking the range, and I'm not gonna keep going after this. Like once I get in here, I'm done, and I check and I go through here, like I'm basically done, and I'm only can do the rest. Like I'm already passing in the same indexes, so I'm not repeating stuff over again. I'm not doing exponential work there. So it is at the very minimum big O of N time complexity, big O of 1 space complexity, constant space. And on time complexity, big O of N is linear time complexity. So anyway, I'm going to run this against, you can run this against like a bunch of test cases in LeetCode that they have like built in, and to see kind of where, how it stacks up to all of that. So I'll run this and I hope that it passes all. Whew. Cause I ain't really know this time. Cause man, I kind of struggled on this one more than I thought. So runtime beat 60. You have to take these with a grain of salt. Like this shows different results every time. So yeah, it looks like I passed all these 477 test cases. So the code is good as far as a solution standpoint. Just run this analyze complexity and see what they think it is from LeetCode's perspective. All right, LeetCode seems to think that it's big O of N. That's what I thought. That's what some people in the comments thought. So what I would suggest people to do is actually I'm gonna go with this because that's what LeetCode is thinking. So I think it's right. So that's my opinion. But so I did explain that to y'all. I did say that. I forgot to type it here. Time complexity, big O of N. I did say that though. Y'all heard me. I said it. Y'all was all up in here. Big O of 1 for space complexity. So, oh yeah, I guess I can do the space complexity one too. Yeah, so they said big O of 1. So I hope I was right. I mean, I think I'm pretty confident I was right. So in an interview, if they didn't even let you run the code, you kind of can almost, if the interviewer thinks you were right, then you straight. But if they have you running the code and you start failing test cases or whatever the case, I was fortunate enough to get this in the first try without having to change anything. That's not always the case. And I was also able to get the time complexity and space complexity right without changing anything, which was good. But like I said, I did look at this a little bit before I started it, so I ain't just start from I'm not going to just lie and say I just started from just scratch brain, but I did start enough to not have some struggles during this thing, because this is something you're supposed to do in like 15 minutes. So now I over explain myself, to teach and to learn and to practice and stuff like that. But an easy problem is going to be something that you would do very fast. So I probably wouldn't take nearly as much time explaining stuff or reading comments or whatever the case is. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. I don't know. I'm looking at the comments. I don't know. It's a bunch of stuff. Yeah. I see the comments. I guess there's a bunch of intellectual stuff over the time complexity. Hey man, I'm saying is, I know some people saying it's big O of n, some people saying it's n squared or n divided by 2. Now the n divided by 2, that one I could see getting confused on, because we have 2 pointers, so it's kind of like it does seem like you're just doing one operation every time you move the pointer in. But maybe that's counting as 2 operations because you are checking every single character in the string at worst case. Because time complexity is about the worst case. If I have to check every single thing in that string is the worst possible case, and that's what you want to denote your time complexity and your big old notation on. And so that's probably why it's big O. And you have to, like, worst case, you got to check every character in the string. And if the string is 1,000,000, then you have to check every single one, worst case, if it's an anagram. Because you got to literally check that each character on 500,000 on one side and 500,000 on the other side, or whatever the case, 499, 99, 999 on the other side. You have to check that it's equal on both sides, worst case. So I think that's right, man. I think it's big O N. That's what LeetCode thinks it is by analyzing it. So let's just go with that. Anyway, shoot, what else I was gonna do? There's something else I was gonna say. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I guess I'm just gonna read some comments, maybe answer a few questions. But yeah, I hope that was helpful to people. I love the discussion, man, especially on TikTok. I feel like the best discussions on TikTok. Yeah, this stuff is hard, man. And like, yeah. And somebody said use a dictionary, or are you just saying a dictionary would be more space? Or you're not saying, yeah. So yeah, you could use, I don't know if you did come up. I don't know if you can use a dictionary or not. I wouldn't even think about a dictionary for this one. But if you did do a solution with a dictionary, you would be using more space. And I'm just using constant space in my solution. So if you did use a dictionary, you'd be using more space. And the interviewer could come back and ask you like, hey, could you do this solution without using any space to optimize it? Because a lot of times in the interviews, if you don't come up with like, it just depends. Like you want to prioritize coming up with any solution you can, even if it's brute force, even if it is n squared or a bad algorithm. Coming up with solutions better than none. But if you do come up with a bad non-optimal solution, not bad solution, non-optimal solution, there is a chance that the interviewer might ask you to try to optimize it. So I feel like if you're using space in this problem, they're probably going to ask you to optimize it for sure. What language is this? It's JavaScript. Instagram, appreciate the people, the 1 or 2 people that jump on Instagram every now and then. I appreciate that. Appreciate my boys Mark and David hopping on Facebook. My boy Kenneth on YouTube. Yeah, appreciate y'all joining. I'm gonna answer a few more questions. Bro asked me about my tech stack. Oh, y'all asking each other stuff? Or y'all asking me? But anyway, like, yeah, check, I always like try to push people, like, follow each other. Seems like there's a lot of smart people in the comments and stuff. Fight with each other, whatever the case is. Looked like it was a long, I see, like, you doing these, I can't even pay attention to the comments while I'm doing. It takes so much focus to kind of stay focused on it. Like I found myself looking at the comments, getting distracted, and then that's when I like, you hear me freeze up because I'm probably like side eyeing a comment, and I'm trying to figure out the context in my mind while I'm talking about the problem. But it actually helped me in interviews, because then it's like when I'm in an interview, it's like easy. It's just one person just sitting there on the other side. I wouldn't say easy, but it makes it easier because this. How can I explain? This is good practice for an interview, because I'm like doing this in front of all y'all. Then when I get an interview, it's just one other person. Now, yeah, the stakes are higher, and of course, it's a different level of risk or whatever, different level of outcome that can happen from it. But this at least is a good practice to talking in front of people, having a little bit of pressure of having to do this in front of folks that can judge it or whatever. And so, I don't recommend that everybody jump on live to do coding problems, but like at least do a coding problem in front of somebody at some point, because like you got to get those nerves out the way. If your nerves get to you, no matter how practiced you are, you can't perform properly. So, that goes with everything in life, So, what company got the most freaks? Hey, I don't know, man. I don't know about all that. I'm taking, man. I don't even know. But I'm assuming you're gonna find out. So you let me know. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to know, but you just let me know. What AI coding program do you use? So I'm using Gemini within VS Code, and then I use Copilot within VS Code for personal stuff. I want to try out Cursor, like IDE, which is like a fork of VS Code, and then use one of the LLMs with that. But yeah, right now I've just been using mostly just VS Code and just using, just pulling in one of the plugins for one of the AI services, LLMs. You clocking into your minimum wage tomorrow? Dang, man. Dang, bro. What's going on, man? Y'all talk about each other bad up in the comments. Like, I don't know, on TikTok, I don't know what happened. What happened for y'all to be talk? How it go from solving coding challenge to y'all talking about y'all asking each other? Dang, y'all asking each other. Chad slide. Nah, you good, man? You said my bad. You good, man? Hey. Sometimes you just gotta fight, man. I don't know. Oh, y'all asking each other the question, what's a while loop? What's a double? Oh, y'all going crazy, man. Damn. Hey, this is entertaining, but I'm gonna try to stay focused on answer some questions. Dang, somebody said, if you make over 180, I'll start listening. Oh, that's Chest Slide. Dang. Well, you going in, man. I don't know. See, I missed something, man. I don't know what happened. But damn. Dictionary would still be constant time. Yeah, using a dictionary as far as time complexity, because accessing the things you put in the dictionary is a constant operation. You probably would stay with constant time. I agree. But yeah, you would just kind of trade for some space. Because the dictionary, well, no, because I guess if you're using the dictionary and then I guess it depends on your solution, man. I guess it depends on your solution, how many keys you have. And so yeah, if you're only putting in 26 keys for the alphabet, then yeah, it actually would still be constant space. But if you are having to key the dictionary in some way that's growing with the size of the input, so like if you had a million characters, then yeah. So yeah, the dictionary might be, I might have been wrong earlier when I said the dictionary. I'm assuming whatever solution you're gonna do with the dictionary is gonna be just using the characters, the letters of the alphabet, lowercase English letters, as the problem says. That's why your constraints matter. Because if you did use a dictionary and then you would know your dictionary would just be lowercase English letters, which would just be like 26, like somebody in the comments said on TikTok. So I get what you're saying. I think you might be right there. Like if you come back and explain what you would do with the dictionary solution. I mean, it definitely would be more space. Like you would be using more space, but it'd probably just be constant space if you were just doing like a frequency map of the letters. But I'm guessing you're saying, I just don't know how you would see that as a palindrome with the dictionary though. Because now anagram, maybe, like if this problem was saying find an anagram, if you remove one thing from it, do you still get an anagram? Or if you're like trying to compare if two things were anagrams and you were just like checking that that it both had the same number frequency of letters, both words had the same, you were comparing two words, are they both anagrams of each other or whatever or something like that, and you were just checking the frequency of the letters in both with dictionaries or whatever, I don't know, something like that. Maybe that would maybe that would be solution. But I'm trying to figure out how, because you would have to know the order to know if something is a palindrome. The order matters in the string too. Like it needs to be the same the front way that it is the back way. So unless you're just going in order, I'm just trying to figure out how that dictionary helps you when you already have to traverse the string from front to back anyway. Or maybe you find a way to not do it. I don't know. Yeah, I would definitely like to hear more about that. Yeah, somebody said, "Oh right, order matters, dictionary." I don't. Yeah, so yeah, chess. I think yeah, maybe the dictionary might not work. Okay, yeah. I think we got that answer. Appreciate it. Appreciate you bringing it up though to think about, because dictionary is usually like, that's one of the things you pull out the toolbox, man. Like on stuff similar to this, especially anagram stuff, you usually gonna have to pull out the dictionary. And I know this sounding weird because I keep saying that, but somebody said something I want to read into. Is it wild that ChatGPT could solve this in milliseconds? Yeah. So these problems ain't about, it's about testing developers. It really is about testing the developers, kind of the way they solve problems. That's what it's supposed to be about. The way they problem solve, the way they think about complexity and algorithms. Do you know how the algorithms you're writing scale? And it does matter in a job. Like I have seen bad algorithms in real life scenarios where they access some sort of database or they do some sort of expensive operation. If your algorithm is using too much runtime memory, that's why we talk about space complexity. If your algorithm is using too much runtime memory on a real machine in a real environment, if you exceed the RAM, it's either gonna cause a crash, or it's gonna cost you more money, your company or whoever, more money to either vertically scale the server to get more RAM or horizontally scale or whatever the case, because your algorithm is bad. And so a bad algorithm, as the scale increases, as you might be fine with 12 users, but when 1 million users come in, now you're exceeding the RAM. You're having to scale your system unnecessarily, when a better algorithm that makes better use of runtime memory could save your company a lot of money. So that's why this algorithm stuff matters. And the number of operations you're doing on time complexity matters if you're doing expensive operations. So not just about using memory, but let's say this code, you wouldn't do this code in a real life scenario, this exact problem. But let's say I had this while loop, and inside of here, instead of doing these stupid nonsensical things in here, let's say I was calling an API that cost 1 token to call it. And let's say my algorithm was not optimal and I was making exponential calls. Like if my size of my string was 5, I was making 25 calls. I was making like exponential, n times n calls. So like, let's say if it was 1 million, then I was doing 1 million times 1 million calls. And so instead of using 1,000,000 tokens, I was using 1,000,000 times 1,000,000 tokens, which I don't even know what number that is. That's a lot of money that you wasting if you just did a better algorithm. If possible, if you can optimize. Sometimes you can't optimize, but if you can, that's why it matters. And I have seen developers write bad algorithms, like you just see it. And so now that we're moving into, of course, we're moving into times of AI, where AI is going to write a lot of this stuff. But AI right now, as is, it can still make mistakes too, and it can still miss context if the context window doesn't have what it needs. It can still make mistakes. It can still write an algorithm that it doesn't know is bad because it doesn't have all the context it needs to know that it's bad. It doesn't know about this other thing over here that's being used in a whole nother service somewhere that the context window doesn't have. There's still a lot of problems where AI can't catch every single inoptimal thing, so it's still good for us to know about this, at least in 2025, July 2025. It's still good for us to know about it if you're still working as a software developer. So it ain't over for this type of knowledge and knowing this kind of stuff. But yes, AI is coming, and I believe that companies are gonna start doing less and less leak code challenges and start doing more like AI assisted challenges, where they ask you to build stuff with AI, and how fast can you build it? Can you explain what you did? Do you know what you're doing? How do you prompt the AI? How do you get the context window right? What instructions do you give the AI? Stuff like that. I do think we're gonna start to build more with AI, and it's gonna start to reflect in the interviews. But for right now, at least as far as I know, I know somebody that just was interviewing with Facebook, and they're still asking these kind of questions. Facebook is the main company, like Zuckerberg, or one of the main companies that's talking about AI is gonna write everything, but they're still asking leak code questions in their interviews. So this stuff you hear on the news ain't always, and you see on social media, ain't always matching up to what's happening in real life. I know somebody that literally just went through the process with Facebook. So, and they were asked leak code problems. So these companies are still doing this stuff. So I get it. Every day we just seeing new posts and stuff. AI is taking over. AI is doing everything. But literally, the company that's having posts about it every day on social media about Zuckerberg talking about AI is writing 50% of the code. We're not gonna be coding anymore. Blah blah blah. His company is still, as of a few weeks ago, still asking leak code questions like this, like the one I just did. So I'm not saying don't believe everything, but take everything you see with a grain of salt and look at what's actually really happening. Look on Glassdoor and see what problems people getting asked. Look on blind.com, see what problems people are getting asked day to day. And when I see that start to change, and when I see the anecdotes start to change that I'm hearing about personally, then that's when I'll, probably stop doing these problems. Or when I go on my next interview run, whenever that is, and I start to see, I see that they're not asking these questions anymore, then I'll stop working on them. Because I'd be happy to. I didn't even want to start working on leak code until I started the last time I was doing major interviews, and I wanted to interview for these big companies, and they were asking leak code, so I had to step up on it. So that's just how we, what we're running into now. So do you think AI will evolve to have freak offs? Y'all just on TikTok, man. Y'all just off the chain, man. I don't know what's going on. I mean, AI will evolve to do everything. So I'll just keep it right there with that. AI is going to touch everything. AI is lame. I mean, I guess it don't matter if it's lame or cool or whatever at this point. It's going be what it is. Do you see Meta pay? Do you mean Meta, the compensation? Yeah, the compensation is crazy at all those big companies. Meta, Facebook, Netflix. I heard they got some crazy compensation over there. How's the job market? Job market is just terrible right now. It's really not good. There's companies still hiring, but I think Microsoft just announced a bunch of layoffs. A lot of companies are still laying off. It's still not great. It's very hard to find a job, whether you're seasoned or whether you're junior. So you really, if you're going for jobs that have these leak code interviews, you really need to be on point. If you're going for jobs, even if they don't have them, you still need to be on point with whatever they are asking. You need to I always suggest to do projects like freelancing projects to get like real projects on your resume if you're starting out to beef your resume up. And I'm saying real projects, like go and talk to people and like actually build some real projects that you can put at real URLs and or real apps that you build for like real customers. Get a contract made, put it on your resume as contract work. I worked from this month to this month for this company. I built this for them. Like that's a kind of a sort of a cheat code. It's a lot of work, but it's sort of a cheat code to get get experience on your resume where you have none, to try to get that first job. If you're experienced, then it's all about interview prep because you got the experience, so they're gonna see that and you're gonna be able to talk about it in the interview. But it's when they ask these challenges and when they ask the system design stuff and the behavioral questions, like you need to knock all that stuff out the park. You know, if especially with these tech companies that are either one of these big tech companies or these companies that emulate the interview processes of the big tech companies, which a lot of them just try to do. So anyway, don't try to avoid leak code, just embrace it. Yeah, for right now, if it just depends on what kind of job you're going. There is this coding without whiteboards GitHub repository that has a lot of companies that don't do whiteboard style coding challenges, leak code style coding challenges, but there's certain jobs, man, if you want them, if you want those huge compensations at those jobs, like you probably still got to do leak code. And yeah, like doing them once a week, holistic vids, yeah, doing them once a week is good. Just stay in practice. So then when you do jump into like a full grind, you'll be just a little bit more prepped. But yeah, my first job, they didn't ask me any leak code stuff. Like this was years ago when I first started. Leak code wasn't as prevalent, or these coding challenges weren't as prevalent. But now, you know, the last time I was interviewing, I'd say it was a little more than half were going to ask some sort of coding challenge in some part of the process. That was a little while ago now, so maybe things have changed. But as far as the things I've heard in person and the things I've seen on forums and like places where people are posting the interview questions, it's still a lot of leak code questions out there. So what if instead leak code was freak code? Yeah, you crazy, man. Everything got something to do with that at this point. You need luck too. Yeah, sometimes you just need to get the right question. Somebody said earlier something about pattern recognition. Like a lot of it is gamified. Like it can be gamed in a sense. But I'd say the best strategy for learning is not just try to memorize all the problems, but do try to figure out the patterns. Because a lot of the problems, some of the problems they ask you, they'll just be these one-off things that you just would have had to do the problem. Like even for this one, like this one's kind of hard if you don't, you kind of got to have an idea about the strategy. You got to know kind of how the algorithm for palindromes, and you kind of got to know a strategy for removing the character. And you may be able to find it out on your own, but it's kind of easier if you've at least done it once. But most of the problems they asking are some variation of another problem or another pattern, and some tweak to that pattern, that algorithm that you should learn. So you kind of want to focus on learning the patterns and the algorithms first, the foundational things. I know it sounds cheesy and it sounds like a waste of time. Just go do the problems first. But I'm telling you, learning the patterns and learn how to recognize the patterns is going to help you a lot more. Because Google and like these big companies, they're wise to leak code. They're not going to just copy a problem from leak code and just give it to you directly. They're going to tweak it and try to make it look unrecognizable. But under the hood, once you start doing the problem, you're going to notice like, oh, I know I need to use a map here. I know I need to use a matrix here. Or I know I need to use some sort of data structure here. I know I need to use breadth first search here to solve this problem. Like you'll start to see the patterns and what algorithm matches with solving that problem, and that'll make it a lot easier. Because certain problems just had these certain wordings and certain things to them that lend themselves to certain solutions. And so just memorizing 100,000 problems is just not is not as good as you think it would be. So I know some front end developers that can't even do a for loop. That's crazy, man. That's rough. Cause at that point, I don't think you're a front end developer. At that point, I feel like you're a website designer or website builder. If you can't do a for loop, like if you can't write a for loop in JavaScript as a front end developer, then what are you actually doing at work? You're more or less just building websites. You know what I mean? Like you're not actually building web applications. Because you really don't need front end developers to build a website. You need front end developers to build web applications like that, or complex applications that have dynamic user interfaces, and data driven, stuff like that. So where do you do these challenges? This is LeetCode.com, LEET code.com. It's free. If you pay them a little bit, you can get some more resources, get more like, what's really good on LeetCode.com if you pay for LeetCode Pro is the companies. Like when I was interviewing last, like if you pay for Pro, it'll give you like a list of big companies. It have to be the big ones. But if you're interviewing for those big companies, it'll tell you what problems they most recently asked. And it was like most of the time, man. Like when I would interview before a big company, before the interview, I would look at what LeetCode had and I would just do all those problems. And those problems would show up a lot of the time. Now, not all the problems they asked would show up, but a lot of them would show up. So it wasn't wrong. So anyway. Let me see. How long does it take to be job ready from a beginner? Yes. Somebody said stop asking how long, just start working. Yeah, you just got to get started. But it's still a good question. It just depends, man. Depends on how much time you got. Like if you're depends on the rate at which you're studying. Like I know people that can, if you're a beginner that can get job ready. I mean, I know people that could get ready and like they could go do a 6-month boot camp and be ready to go after the 6 months, depending on how invested they are and how much time they're doing and what's the quality of their preparation. Their interview prep too on top of it. I know people that studied on their own for a year and was ready to go. So it just depends because like it could take you a year if you're only practicing once a week. It could take you 5 years if you're only practicing once a month. Or it could take you 3 months if you're practicing like 8 hours a day. If you got like you somehow you're able to practice a lot, it could take you a lot less time. It just depends. So, just get started, man. And, hit me up in the DMs if you need some more guidance, deeper guidance than that, based on your goals, because it probably depends on your goals as well. Like if you're trying to get a job, then you kind of really are you need to learn the fundamentals of a certain language, learn how to program, learn initial language, learn the fundamentals, start practicing for the interview after you kind of get solid on the fundamentals and you build some projects. Like I believe you got to build some real projects, at least a couple, before you try to go into an interview. So anyway, let me see if I want to answer a few more questions. I'm going to my senior year. What'd you ask about? Was that Flea Boy? I can't even find your question in here. All I see is I'm going to my senior year. I don't see the original question. In this job market, you need guys' grace to land a job. Yeah, man. I mean, it's like I said earlier, I won't go back into it, but the job market isn't as good, but it's still possible to get a job. It's just a lot harder than it was a couple years ago. So there's no way around it, man. You just have to grind through it, but you really just have to practice and just be solid. Like, and that means you might have to go to some interviews and fail some interviews. Like, and it hurts, man. I mean, it hurts. Even after I had like years of experience failing the interviews, I still failed interviews. So, it just is what it is. Like I still failed. Interviewing is a different skill from the day-to-day job. So it's still possible to fail even when you have experience. So don't feel bad if you're a beginner and you're failing interviews. Just use them as learning experience. They're going to hurt. I'm not going to just sit here and say, hey, pretend like it doesn't hurt and just ignore the pain. Like, you ain't going to be able to ignore the pain. It's going to hurt because it's going to be jobs you thought you got and you're not going to get them. And so you just have to keep grinding, man. It's the only way. Like, but I will say, even with AI coming, even with the job market, you got two options. You can just do nothing. You can just say, hey, AI is going to do everything. I'm never going to be able to get a job. Job market sucks. I'm never going to be able to. You can just sit on your hands, or you can work on building your skills. In my experience or my life, the thing that I've observed is that the people with the skills end up winning the most. To me, you either got to have skill or money, so to pay for skill. So either one or the other. So if you don't have the skill, then you just somebody that already was rich either through their own means or rich through inheritance or whatever, and they pay for people to have skills, or they pay for their success, or they pay for their place in the world. Or you got to have skills. So you either cannot have no skills or have some skills. So, a lot of people are asking, like, should I invest in learning the program or learning to get into tech in some other field within tech? Should I invest in it with AI coming? I still think it's the case that you should still grow your skills in some sort of way. Now, if you want to go some other industry and grow some kind of skills there, you want to do like something you think is more AI proof, then I can't argue with that. But I also think that there still will be a lot of space even when AI becomes more prominent. We'll be using AI a lot more as software engineers. We'll be relying on it a lot more, but I think there still will be the software engineering role. As well as like just building context to the real world. Even after AI is writing a lot of the code, there still would need to be somebody that bridges the gap between the real world and the AI LLMs. So, and like, that's why a lot of like MCP servers are becoming popular now, because that's the interface in which you can build connections to LLMs in a standardized way. You build these MCP servers from whatever technology or other thing that you're trying to interface with in the real world or some other third-party digital platform, and it allows you to integrate those things. So you can have AI write those things, but even knowing to go and write those things, like you need a developer or a software engineer to be able to do that in the right ways and prompt it in the right way. So there's still a spot for us. So, anyway, that's what I feel. But, and also even beyond the MCP servers, writing the code for an MCP server, like actually, the MCP server needs to have something to interface within the real world. So there's still going to be applications to like, how does AI help us in the real world? There's still a disconnect between the internet and digital services and new applications for what they can do in the real world. So you're thinking about stuff like self-driving cars, like that may be driven by AI. There still needs to be somebody, a human, that knows how to build these new interfaces with the real world, whatever that means. So AI only knows what we train it on, right? So it's not like it's just, it can come up with new ideas, but it's still always based on trained large language models like LLMs. So new ideas, new interfaces, new integrations are still things that can come from a prompt engineer or whatever, or a context engineer that gives the AI more context that it didn't have before. Because AI can only do what context it has. Like if it doesn't have, like you say you want the AI to control your bank account or whatever, organizing your bank account or telling you something about your bank account. Like if the AI doesn't have access to your bank account or bank accounts, then you can't do nothing with it. So there has to be somebody to allow those integrations and build those integrations in and design how those integrations are going to work. So there's still room for problems to be solved within tech. So don't think just because AI is here, there's still a lot of growing that AI needs to do as far as its context and as far as its, the issues it has, and stuff like that. So that's enough of the AI stuff. I answer that like every single time I get on here, and I get it because the AI is prominent. So, but I mean, I'm not going to keep harping on it. Like it is what it is. Like either you give up on it because you believe AI is going to take over everything. There's some people that got that belief, or you still stay in tech and grow with and embrace AI and grow with it and change with it. So that's my final answer on it for sure. Is anybody that's seen? Yeah, anybody that's seen Copilot knows developers not going anywhere. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a bunch of AI stuff basically. I mean, it's really all we're talking about. I just went to a conference a couple weeks ago, Render ATL, and I mean, most of the sessions were about AI, and I was kind of, it's just a lot. It's just like, dang, everything's AI. Is there just normal programming stuff? But you can't really argue with it because it's like that's all the rage right now. That's what everybody's interested in. So you can't really argue with them setting up the sessions like that. All the conferences are kind of like leaning heavy into AI because we have to embrace it. But the main theme I saw from the conference was, it's just, hey, we're not going anywhere. Like, will there be maybe less of us? Yeah, we're seeing that now with the job market, that it's just less people getting in. But if you get in, you're in, so you really just got to get over that first job hump of getting over that first job. And then you can kind of make your way through tech. Because I know my role is going to change over the next 5-10 years. Like as far as how I work, what I work on, my day to day. I know that. So, let's see. We need a skill. Yeah, I need a skill that pays me $1 million. Yeah, so this upskilling, man. Upskilling is what we just need to be doing. And whether that's learning the code or whether that's learning to do something else in tech, even just learning about AI and how to vibe code or whatever, that's a skill too. So I'm not saying you have to just learn the code, but like, gotta learn something. Oh, and Camille, what's up, Camille? Camille, she jumped on here a while ago. Interview is a lot different than the job. Yeah, for sure. Like, it's a different skill. Interviewing skills, like doing these lead codes, is a completely different, separate skill. So, 100%. I've been doing lead code and projects this summer, but I got an internship, but it's more business tech. Hey, sometimes you got to find especially now with this crazy job market, you got to find a way in. And sometimes it may not look like just a plain software development job, but it may just be a tech adjacent job or software engineer adjacent job that'll kind of get you in the door, and then you can pivot and move. You'll have the experience to pivot and move a lot easier than you do without any tech experience. So, hey man, congratulations. Like, just push forward with that. I think it'll be helpful. Are you a mid-level engineer? I don't know if you was asking me. I actually just got promoted to a principal. So I was, of course, started as junior, then moved to senior for a long time. And then I was actually engineering manager, software engineering manager for a while. And then I decided I want to go back to the individual contributor track. And then recently I got promoted to a principal engineer, which is like one level above senior engineer. That's kind of when you've been around for a long time and you start to have impact across multiple teams instead of just one team. You start to think a little bit more on a high level of how to improve things or design solutions, doing more architecting than you would normally do, and trying to, delegate more and try to drive the organization more, initiatives across the organization, the company more than just your individual team, individual projects. And also, trying to move into a level where you're starting to create industry level impact. So that's where I'm at now. So, that's why I'm on this internet trying to do stuff. I'm trying to, make impact across the industry, help people get into coding, help people with interviewing. So check out my content. I post on all these different channels that I'm streaming on. I'm going to keep doing lives maybe once or twice a week. At least once a week is what I'm trying to aim for right now. I do Q&A. Sometimes I do these coding challenges. So I appreciate all the engagement, especially on TikTok for sure. I think it's the most engagement there. But on every platform, I appreciate everybody joining, like and share and all that good stuff. Follow me if you want to DM me, ask questions. I follow back. What's the other thing I was gonna say. Oh yeah, like connect with each other too. Like there's a lot of conversations happening. Like connect with each other. Like it's pretty good dev and tech community and people interested in getting into it on here. So like you see somebody else interested, you don't have to follow me. Just follow them or connect with them. It's good too. So let me see. You still recommend starting with LeetCode? No. For beginners, do you recommend starting with LeetCode? If you're beginning to practice coding challenges, then I definitely recommend getting your feet wet with LeetCode a little bit, but then moving to something like Algo Expert or Algo Monster or YouTube or something to start learning pattern recognition, learning data structures, learning algorithms, like starting with the fundamentals. Like learning how to write different algorithms, binary search, depth first search, all the different search algorithms. I'll just say that. Two-pointer approach, like two-pointer algorithm, sliding window algorithm, learning data structures, not tables, but matrices, graphs, arrays, of course, learning how strings, like that's a data structure within itself that has a lot of problems on coding challenges. Maps, hash maps, stacks, queues, like learning how these different data structures work, because these are like center of problems. And I really suggest algomonster.com. Like that's where I learned and that's where I had a breakthrough with coding challenges, by using Algo Monster. It taught me the fundamentals first, and then when I came back to LeetCode, it was a lot easier because then I started being able to detect patterns. Now I'm not no expert at all, like with coding challenges. I'm not going to pretend to be, but I at least got the credibility to say that like I passed FANG interviews before. I've gotten offers, so I've done good enough. I've done these problems good enough in a real interview session real interview scenario to pass those interviews. I passed all kind of like small companies, mid-size, big tech. Like I passed all kind of interviews. I failed all kind of interviews too, and I count that experience too. I think that's probably about it. I've been on here like 2 hours. I appreciate it. Next time I'll probably just come on here and do a Q&A. I'll probably mix it up, do a coding challenge one day, do a Q&A the next day, the next time, so I can answer questions, because there's just so many questions, and I think that's where like the best learning happens outside of the coding challenge. So next time I'll probably do that, do a Q&A, and then people can. And I'll probably in the future start doing interviews, maybe live interviews where I just let people join. I don't know, that might get a little crazy because people on here talking about freak offs and all that kind of junk. So I don't know, but I might invite some of my people that I actually know on here to join and like do some interviews, like live interviews in the future, which I think would be cool. So hit me up if you be something that you'll be interested in. And other than that, like I think I'm on call of the night. I appreciate especially some of you guys, like let me call some names out. Holistic Vids, Chess Zera, that's been on here for a while. Was another dude with a C that was on here for a long time. Moneybag Fox. Oh, he said he needs a mentor. I'm not in a position to be a mentor, but there may be somebody else here that can do it. Appreciate like a lot of my friends that jumped on other platforms. If they still on here, I appreciate y'all. And then especially Instagram, like everybody that jumped on there. I know it's usually just a few at a time, but I definitely appreciate it when y'all jump on. And especially TikTok, folks on TikTok. That's usually where most folks joining on at. So, appreciate y'all. Like, connect with me. Send me a DM if you have questions that I couldn't answer here. If I missed your comment or whatever the case, if you have questions about this algorithm that I did, or if you just have questions in general, connect with me. And be sure to like check me out on other channels too. Like if you're watching me on a channel now that's not your preferred channel, I'm on like streaming on all the different channels. I post content, programming content, tech content to try to help people. I'm a principal software engineer now. I almost said senior still, but yeah, I'm a principal software engineer now. So I know a little bit. I don't know everything. I'm humble enough to say I don't know everything. So there's a lot of stuff that people teach me on here all the time. So I'm willing to, turn the circle around and try to help other people as well while I'm still learning on here too. So I appreciate y'all. I appreciate every single person that joined, every single person that's still here that stayed with me. And yeah, I'm gonna let y'all have a good night. It's 1 a.m. where I'm at, so I'm gonna see y'all later. I gotta go to work in the morning. I'm sure some of y'all gotta go to work too, or at work. So I appreciate it, man, and stay down with whatever your goals are, whatever you're trying to do. Stay focused. Let me know if I can help in any way, and I'll see y'all in the next.